Jam cakes are a quick, cheerful dessert with ingredients that you're bound to have, unless you haven't been to the store in weeks. The recipe makes 6 or more cupcake-size cakelets, depending on the size of your tins. Perfect when you can't stop thinking of something sweet but you don't want an entire cake. That said, the recipe is a snap to double. Use whatever type of jam you'd like. In the photo above I used tart cherry jam I bought thinking it had more than just cherries. However, it was almost entirely cherries, with only a bit of jam binding it. I had the last of a jar of raspberry jam in the fridge, so I briefly warmed it in the microwave, then pressed it through a sieve to remove the seeds. I blended the cherries into the jam and added a big squeeze of fresh lemon juice along with a tiny bit of tart cherry juice. Voila, lots of cherries and lots of jamminess too. For the icing I used some of the raspberry cherry jam along with some tart cherry juice and blended it with the powdered sugar. My plan was to place a fresh cherry on top of each, but the cakes had a slight mound on top and I realized the cherries wouldn't stay put. But there were enough cherries in the jam to place one tart cherry on top of each little cakelet as well as to tuck 1+ jam into the dough for the signature treat in the more or less middle of each. I brought them to a Memorial Day gathering, everyone said, "Oh," in unison, and they were gone in a matter of minutes. In the dead of winter when fresh berries are hard to come by, the Southern Classic Jam Cake is a cake I just had to try. Aside from just plain jam cake, I've seen it called Tennessee Jam Cake and Kentucky Jam Cake. The cake was apparently a favorite of President Andrew Jackson, as author Ann Byrne reveals in her cookbook, American Cake. In the article, Make America Bake Again, A History of Cake in the U.S., she says that jam cake actually hailed from Europe, arriving in America via German immigrants who settled in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Ohio. Okay, so Ohio isn't in the South. Berries would be picked in summer, jam would be made, and a jar or two saved for winter that could be used to make this spiced jam cake. Yes, there are spices in this cake, the usual suspects of cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg, or allspice. The first thing I did to put this cake together was to sift the spices in with the flour, salt, and baking soda. Course dessert. Cuisine Early American. Cook time 50 minutes. Servings. 10. Ingredients. Cake. 2½ cups all-purpose flour. 1/4 teaspoon salt. 1 teaspoon baking soda. 1/2 teaspoon ground cloves. 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon. 1 teaspoon ground nutmeg. 1 cup unsalted butter, softened, 8 ounces, 2 sticks, or 226 grams. 1 cup sugar. 3 large eggs, room temperature. 1 cup jam, blackberry, raspberry, or plum, at room temperature. 1 cup buttermilk, or 1 tablespoon vinegar mixed into 1 cup milk. Let stand at least 10 minutes before using. Glaze. 2 tablespoons unsalted butter. 1/2 cup brown sugar, firmly packed. 4 tablespoons milk. 1½ cups confectioner's sugar. Jam cakes might have been something new in our great-grandmother's day. As alert readers are probably painfully aware, I am halfway through the writing of a book based on the 1894 manuscript cookbook that belonged to my great-grandmother, Lillian Bowman, 1876–1963, of Hazleton and Berwick, Pennsylvania. This involves preparing, photographing, and researching the history of 128 recipes. Oh, and eating the result. I'm exactly halfway finished. Lillian's jam cake, probably from about 1903, has turned out to be a very unique and delicious piece of research. It isn't as sweet as today's baked goods and has a wonderful old-fashioned flavor from the cinnamon, large amount of cloves and jam in the batter of the layers. Then, there's more jam spread between the layers. We used blackberry. Blackberry, apricot, or strawberry jam seem to be traditional. It is possible that the recipe was circulating hand-to-hand and in newspapers in Lillian's day. The first recipe we found in newspapers was in 1893, News Chronicle, Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. A 1908 recipe in the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader and Evening News was quite similar to Lillian's. It contained nearly the same ingredients and same amounts. A nearly identical, handwritten recipe for jam cake was tucked inside in a copy of Household Discoveries and Mrs. Curtis's Cookbook, copyright New York, The Success Company, 1909. The book and recipe, probably once owned by someone from the Midwest, were brought to my attention by a reader on Facebook. The recipe in the Mrs. Curtis Cookbook was written on a page from a ledger book of a stockyard company or organization that had branches in Illinois, Nebraska, and Texas. The same cookbook contained a letter from October of 1913. This would suggest that the recipe ran in a syndicated newspaper recipe column and was copied by someone in the Midwest as well as our great-grandmother. There is no mention of the recipe in leading cookbooks of Lillian's day, including the 1896 Boston Cooking School, Fanny Farmer, cookbook. In the last 100 years, there has been a wide variety of jam cake recipes calling for various icings and fillings. A frequently seen Tennessee jam cake, first mentioned in Boston Globe, 1932, seems to be about as elaborate as the recipe could get. On the site newspapers.com there was a spike in mentions of jam cake in 1977, probably because of numerous food articles about Southern cooking that ran immediately after Jimmy Carter of Georgia was elected president.